Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is in the world, wherever you are tuning in from. I'm with Will Buchek from the Tennis Tribe. I know I advertised this as Will and Hanlon, but Hanlon is here in a sort of he's not here, but he's here, if you know what I mean. You'll figure it out.
Spiritual sense.
Spiritual, that's the word I'm looking for. Will, of course, and I and Hanlon too meet up pretty much after every slam. I think this is maybe the 5th time we've done this. Occasionally, Will and I do cross paths as well. Will, actually, I do have a quick question that I wanted to ask you off air, but I'm going to do it on air. It doesn't matter. Are you going to Indian Wells this year?
I will be there. I believe Thursday I fly in through Monday. So I'll be there that middle weekend through nice. Monday. I think I'll leave Monday or Tuesday. So
cool. I know.
Are you going to be there?
No, personally, no, but talking tennis, yes.
Okay.
We've got at least 2 people, albeit that they're going in separate moments because we've only got one media accreditation, but we've got, I think we've pretty much got the whole fortnight covered, give or take a day or 2. But it'll always be one person at a time. Anastasia is one of the people, Ashley's another, each going on particular days. But that's something to look forward to, Will. But that's in the future. We want to talk about the very recent past. And that, of course, involves the Australian Open doubles. We are sharing on Instagram and Twitter. I know on Will's Twitter and Instagram pages, they are there. So do get joining in the comments there. And also, of course, on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch as well. So let us know if you have any doubles questions, etc. But let's get on with things, Will. And let's begin with a kind of historic moment on the men's doubles side involving Bopanna, of course, who not only managed to reach world number 1, but I believe it was at the 60th time of managing to win a Grand Slam title. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was, his first Grand Slam title. Hamlin actually wrote an article about it the other day, about him and Hseih, just how they're kind of defying what you would expect in professional sport, with Bopanna being 43 and Hseih being 38. And just, Bopanna, this didn't come out of nowhere, right? They were the 2 seed. They made the finals in New York only 5 or 6 months ago. So it was awesome to see, just kind of as a fan, to see him break through and get that Grand Slam final, and really playing the best he ever has at 43 years old. It's really amazing.
Yeah, right. I'm just sharing that article right now by Hanlon regarding Hseih Su-wei and Rohan Bopanna as well. Is there, before we get into the nuts and bolts of the tournament itself, I mean, I think we are seeing sports people play longer than ever. Certainly in most sports like American football and soccer too. I mean, soccer, we always talked about a peak of being 27, 28, 29, maybe 30 at the absolute maximum. And in soccer, you used to be kind of done at 32, 33, no matter who you were, no matter how good you were. We were seeing Messi and Ronaldo still tearing it up in their late 30s. And we are seeing a similar thing on the singles tour. But Will, is it a little bit easier in doubles to keep going at an even older age? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's certainly less taxing on the body. You're covering, obviously the court itself is bigger with the doubles alleys, but you're still covering less of the court than you are in singles. And then also, I think part of it is kind of, there's a little bit more strategy and tactics and kind of, a lot more variables in doubles, since you have 4 players on the court instead of 2. And I think that the older players are generally better at that. It just takes years and years and years of experience to really refine your tactics and your ability to be in the right positions in doubles, which is a lot more important than raw athleticism, as we're seeing from Bopanna and Hseih as well.
Do we see, or do you think we might start to see in the future, Will? Because I still think that doubles is in this kind of no man's land at the moment, and it's whose fault it is, we've discussed many times on this program, but the identity crisis that I think is there, and I could be using that term too loosely. And like I said, I'm not blaming the sport itself, but I think there's a lot of outward powers that have caused this issue with identity. But do you think we might see a situation where, you know, we're seeing it a little bit with maybe Fornini and one or two others where they've kind of, you know, maybe Laura Siegemund as well, who've had stellar singles careers, but they're finding at 35, 36, maybe because their experience and their guile and their all-round game, that actually they can actually flourish at the doubles level, you know, in their late 30s.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely happening. Even Matt Ebden, right, had a singles career and then kind of transitioned to doubles over the last 5 years or so. And now he's, you know, a multiple-time major champion on the doubles court. So I think it's definitely an option for singles players, especially, you know, those players who maybe weren't at the top of the singles game, but still had a long kind of steady career. And then as far as doubles, what was the phrase you used? Doubles being in kind of a
identity crisis. I just
identity
came up with
crisis.
that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to
I
upset.
No, I think
anyone.
that's fair. I think that's fair. And I don't know if you had a chance to see Bopanna and Ebden's press conference after
No.
their finals win. So somebody asked Matt Ebden, who I believe he's on the ATP Players Council. If not, he's like involved somehow, but I'm pretty sure he's on the ATP Players Council this year. And he talked about like it's a topic right now that they're actively trying to work on, is figure out where does doubles fit. Like there's going to be a lot of changes over the next year or two, it seems. Obviously, you've got Saudi Arabia trying to get a Masters 1000 in front of the Australian Open, which Craig Tiley doesn't like, from Tennis Australia. And Ebden talked about, you know, we're trying to figure out what to do with doubles because he's a guy who has both perspectives. He was a good singles player, and now he's one of the best doubles players. So he gets it from both sides. He understands the singles players who complain about the doubles players taking resources and taking money away from the pot when they're not bringing in the eyeballs. And then he also understands the doubles perspective of, you know, we deserve better marketing. We deserve to be on the billboards as well because we're also good at tennis and we're playing in these majors as well. There's two sides of that. And I think Ebden is a person who really understands it. I'm glad that he is involved in some of the decision-making process for it. And there was a few articles the past couple of days. Here, I'll see if I can link to one
Sure.
for you from The Guardian. So Craig Tiley talked about how doubles is kind of in a dangerous spot. So let's see if I can.
Yeah, sure. I've got it. I think doubles in trouble, says Australian Open boss. Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah.
Craig Tully says the format not meaning enough. Doubles finals at the AO drew small crowds. ATP review is underway. So I mean, we have chatted about this before. I think people need to take some responsibility here because actually, I listen. This is just an an off the cuff response to this, which we've touched on before, which is actually that I think when people actually go and watch doubles, probably more so even in person than on TV, actually it is a lot of fun. I think Indian Wells is maybe the tournament in the whole year. Funny enough, we did just touch upon it, where actually doubles does sort of get a bit more interest and stuff. And I think it is. I think it is very rescuable. I think you just need to brainstorm a bit and find out where and how. I mean, maybe having it on different days and just trying to tailor it. Maybe making the tournaments a bit shorter so that way people who fall out the singles earlier can jump on the doubles train. I don't know, but this is just spitballing, and I think that might be an idea. Rather than just writing it off as people like Rolio Pelka want, I think they should try first.
Yeah. I think they are going to start starting the doubles tournaments a little bit later so that some of those singles players who do end early or lose early in the singles draw can enter. But this is something, I had Ben Rothenberg on my podcast recently, and we had almost like a 2-hour conversation about this with all sorts of ideas on what we can do. But two of the things that Matt Ebden mentioned in his press conference were allowing the fans to sit closer to the court for doubles, and then also allowing them to just move around during the matches and play music during the doubles matches. So make it.
I certainly like the idea of moving around, Will. And I'm sorry
Yeah.
to. I tell you why. Because maybe that's one of the issues is that, people would like to come and go with doubles and squeezing it into their singles day, if you like. But I mean, in the second week, it's a bit easier to squeeze in, if you like, of a slam. So, and that way you could just, look, we've got 20 minutes. But if you've got to stand outside for 10 minutes because you can't get in until there's a break in play, well, there you go.
Yeah. And he also mentioned removing the breaks on changeovers. So maybe you get a break after the set, but there's no reason on the doubles court to have a break after 3 games and then 5 games and then 7 games.
And if you're allowed to enter at any time, then that's great.
Yeah, and especially with most of the tournaments, the format, with the exception of the Grand Slams, is no ad. You have a 10-point tiebreaker for the third. Like, it's not like you're going to be exhausted out there. You can handle, a break after the set. Like, that's fairly reasonable. And I think, something Ben Rothenberg and I talked about on the podcast was using doubles as and this was his phrase, but I really liked it a lot, kind of a petri dish to experiment with different things like that. And if it has a lot of success, then they can kind of transition it to singles. And I think it's a real opportunity for doubles to do that, to experiment and kind of separate itself from singles. Like singles, they could almost separate themselves and say, like, singles is great, it's got the tradition, but we've got music going on between points. You can enter and exit whenever you want. We engage with the fans more. You're sitting closer to the court. Like, make it almost a different type of thing, so that people who are new to tennis come to the U.S. Open for the first time or whatever it is. They go into the singles court and they're like, well, this is a little bit boring. I want to go back over to the doubles because they got music going on. They're high-fiving the fans. Like, that sounds a lot more fun to me. And I think if doubles can kind of take some of those opportunities that singles is not taking advantage of, I think that could help. But I'm both concerned for doubles right now, and I'm also very excited because changes are definitely coming, and I'm concerned. I think there is a reasonable chance that a lot of these doubles players and the doubles tour gets, if not like totally canceled, then like very minimized. But I also think there's a very reasonable chance that they do experiment with some of this stuff and we can see kind of the potential that it actually has. So I think one of those things is going to happen. I'm hoping it's the latter, obviously.
I think the audience going part of the operation, I think that may be the easiest one to fix. And I think we can still see crowds. And I think one of the things Craig Tiley was touching on is how the stadiums weren't full during those matches. And, even for the singles final, for example, whether it be men's or women's on the Saturday and Sunday, the doubles thing, either if it comes before or after, people are still building their day. Let's say you've got a 5-set men's final at the US Open. You're thinking, I see people go shopping in that 1 or 2 hours before around the venue and partake in all the activities that are happening outside of the stadium, Arthur Ashe, for example. And then once the men's singles final gets underway, they're there for their seat and knowing all the rest of it. So, but I think with some of these ideas that you've just mentioned, I think it's a great way to get people, moving around and going in and out. We'll dip in for 10 minutes, we'll dip out, especially earlier in that second week, when the matches are coming a bit more thick and fast. My bigger concern is, because this is where most of the money lies, is television. Because there's a lot more money there than just, paying for your ticket and going to watch the tennis match. So trying to make that experience, if you can try and get some of the, I mean, let's just say that when Rafa and Novak sort of feel as though they can't quite produce it on a singles court. I mean, if you could attract Serena somehow, if you could, if you could somehow lure her back into the sport, but just in a doubles, just say, look, US Open once a year, try it. You and Venus. What a way to prolong your career and still, get that drug that sport can give you. And if it happens one year, but you realize that you just can't do it because it's first round exit in straight sets, fine. But you might have a run to the semis and you go, my goodness me, I might try this in Australia too, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would do it if there was just more money involved. I mean, there's just the doubles prize money just isn't there. So it's, I mean, I think that's what it all comes down to, right? Like Serena can make a lot more money off sponsorships and stuff than she can like continuing to train even at like 25% and try to extend a doubles career. Because it's
I am ignoring that sort of element. I was thinking maybe Serena might just have that competitive spirit, but maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But I was thinking,
I would love to see it.
her wealth and business interests, I'm sure we couldn't satisfy those, but maybe we could lean to her competitive side of things.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I mean, there's no doubt if she wanted to, I'm sure she could have some success, whether it's winning Grand Slams and doubles, I don't know, but I'm sure she could at least win a few rounds.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sharing an image on the screen right now of Rafa and Bopanna, and the reason being is because Rafa was one of many people to take to social media to congratulate him on reaching #1 in the world in doubles at the age of 43. Tell us a little bit about that story, and then we'll get into the men's doubles tournament itself.
Yeah, 43 years old. It was his first Grand Slam title, and he teamed up with Ebden last year. They had a great year last year. They made the finals of the US Open. They made the ATP finals. And one of the, obviously the age is the thing that stands out. But I remember, I think it was after one of their US Open matches that they won in the on-court interview afterwards, they asked him, how are you doing this at this age? And he gave a lot of credit to his physio team or his like massage therapist. It was somebody that had to do with his physical health. And he said like that person has just like made my year so much better. So I think like we talked about earlier with a lot of players in all sports being able to extend their careers, I think a lot of it's just advancements in kind of this physical ability to keep your body healthy, right? I remember, and I think I've mentioned this on the show before, reading Agassi's book Open, where he's like eating McDonald's during the US Open or something. And that would just like never happen today because we understand like how bad that is for your body.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing to see what Rohan's been able to do. And there was a video yesterday that went kind of viral of him landing back in India, and there was this huge crowd. So it's really, really cool to see. And his post-match interview was really nice as well, like really super inspirational. He talked about, don't ever think you don't have enough time, like be consistent, keep putting in the work. It's a good video for any, junior players or anybody who kind of needs motivation to keep on pushing. And he's proven it out for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. Let's get into their run to the doubles final. What were sort of the standout moments during that run that Bopanna and Ebden had to ultimately lifting the trophy? I'm going to share some of their results on the screen right now. That I think, did it begin in the first round with a tight match against Duckworth and England, actually, the Australian pair, and there was another Australian pair for one from home. But this seems like a pretty pivotal moment, this third set tiebreak, as early as the first round.
Yeah, they went into a 10-pointer in their very first match. The all Aussie teams in Australia always do really well. I think this is the first time in at least 4 years that there hasn't been an all Aussie team in the finals.
Okay.
Obviously, Ebden is Australian, but not Bopanna, obviously.
Yeah.
So last year, Hijikata and Kubler won the tournament. The year before that, Kyrgios Kokkinakis won the tournament. So 2 all Aussie teams. So they opened up with a really tight match, and then from there, didn't have a whole lot of trouble until, let me pull up the draw again. I was looking at this earlier. So they went straight sets against Millman and Winter, and then 2 tiebreakers against Kulhoff and Mektic, who are a new team this year, and they're I'm sure they're going to be a very tough team. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them in the ATP final.
What happened, Will, with Kulhoff and his last doubles pairing? Is that all okay, or was there some kind of friction?
Honestly, I'm not sure. When these doubles pairs split up, I've learned over the past couple of the years, a lot of times you have no idea why it is, and even when you do get an answer, it may not be they're not going to say like, "Oh, we couldn't get along," right?
No.
So
I mean, I'm thinking about Olympic.
I'm really not sure.
Sometimes in Olympic year, I see it like 2 different nationalities, and maybe they end up playing with someone with someone of their own nationality who they're likely to. But we're not seeing Kulhoff pairing up with a Dutchman, and we're not seeing 2 Czechs that we'll talk about at some point probably separating and going off with people of different nationalities. So it's actually the opposite in a way. So I'm very curious to see, and I won't talk about it too much right now, but with Krejcikova and Siniakova, I guess they're going to play together in the Olympics. If they don't play there, we'll know for sure that there's something far deeper going on. But,
you're right. They will.
They very rarely. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they could just be frank. I don't see what the problem would be. Just saying, look, I don't like him or her, and I found it very difficult to work with them. And
those conversations might happen. We just don't know about them.
Yeah, so. But I think I would be okay with saying that in a press conference. Look, we don't get on like we used to, for whatever reason. Maybe you don't go into the details as to why, but anyway, whatever. Kulhoff also succumbed to Bopanna and Ebden, albeit in 2 very close sets. I'm actually showing it on the screen right now. I don't know if you can see that on my screen, but if you've got it on your screen, then that's fine too.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the draw overall.
Another couple of tight sets as well in the quarterfinal. Before then, the semis, which was another 3rd set tiebreaker, and this one much tighter than that first round match against Zhang and Mashak. And by the way, Mahach, I'm always getting the spelling or pronunciation of his name wrong. I think it's Mahach, actually. I don't know how you say the Czech player's name.
Yeah. I looked at it earlier on the ATP website and wrote it down. Mahach. Yeah, I think Mahach is correct. Yeah.
And this one isn't much tighter. And these 2, by the way, Mahach and Zhang are very established singles players now, or establishing themselves as big singles players. Both of them maybe sort of went out a little bit earlier than they might have wanted to in the singles, and that then frees them up ideally for a doubles run. And it was 10-7 in the 3rd set tiebreak.
Yeah, and this is something that we've seen at the Australian Open in recent history, is a lot of these singles pairs, whether it be an all Aussie duo or like Hijikata and Kubler or a different team, they can make a deep run. So Hanfmann and Kopfer made the semifinals as well, and they're both not known for their doubles. The 2 Germans there. So I think it's something that I guess is a result of just early in the year, teams are still trying to figure it out. One thing I looked at earlier was all of kind of the top new teams like Kulhoff and Mektic. So they won in Auckland leading up to the Australian Open, and then lost relatively early here. Skupski and Santiago Gonzalez. So Skupski, who split with Kulhoff last year, is pairing with Gonzalez this year. Marcelo Revelo and Mate Pavic, Glasspool and Roger won Brisbane. None of these new pairings made it past the 3rd round in Australia. So it might be something that where it's just going to take a little bit of time for some of these new pairings to kind of get that team chemistry kind of figured out throughout the season. And it creates opportunities for some of these singles players like Mahach and Zheng, who were very close to taking out Bopanna and Ebden.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, Bopanna and Ebden end up making the final, where actually things were probably a little bit easier than some of the aforementioned matches. I mean, it was straight sets, albeit the first one went to a tiebreak, but they did do it 2-0 that first set tiebreak before winning the 7-5 against the Italian pair of Bolelli and Vavasori. Yeah, I mean, any sort of rounding off comments either about the final itself or just Bopanna and the achievement that he finally managed to get over the hill in terms of getting this title?
Yeah, I mean, it was, like I said, it was just so cool to see, and I think most tennis fans were rooting for him just because the story was so great. Bolelli's been a solid doubles player over the years. He played with Fognini a lot, and they've had a lot of success. And obviously with Fognini not playing, I guess he teamed up with a new Italian, and they had a lot of success making the final. So we'll see if they continue to play together. But I mean, all the attention should be on Bopanna and Ebden. I mean, it was very well deserved. It was very clear that they've worked hard in the off season and deserved the victory.
Yep, indeed. So let's post this in the chat as well. So in the company of Australian Matthew Ebden, Bopanna won his first doubles Grand Slam at the 2024. I think he made the final either last year or the year before, right? Was it maybe in mixed doubles that he made the final, but not managing to get over the hill? But he did win his first Grand Slam at the age of almost basically 44. He's going to be 44 in about just over a month from now. So he won his first doubles Grand Slam at the 61st attempt, and in doing so became the oldest man to win a doubles Grand Slam. And that also came on the back of just reaching world number one as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it looks like he won the French Open in mixed in 2017, according to his Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I think it's the men's doubles. I probably should.
Men's doubles.
So anyway, yeah, well done to him, but of course to Matthew Ebden as well, an equally established doubles player, I would argue, nowadays. Okay, let's move over to the women's doubles, where there was a lot of intrigue about the quarterfinal. Maybe you can flesh out that. I mean, I did just touch on it just before, but between two Czech players on either side of the net. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is one I actually got to watch. With the time zones, I do struggle a little bit staying up super late.
This is the one that we were all. This was the match, the ones that we all had earmarked, and it didn't let us down in terms of the enjoyment.
It was super exciting. So Krejcikova and Siegmund teamed up after obviously Krejcikova and Siniakova had played together for 10 plus years since they were teenagers. And it was kind of shocking news after the WTA finals when they announced that they were splitting. And then, or maybe it was during the WTA finals even?
After, because they played together at the Billie Jean King Cup. So that was Billie Jean King, I think, was a week after. So they played together for the Czech Republic or Czechia at the Billie Jean King Cup. They didn't win the Czechs didn't win that particular tournament, which is a little bit disappointing given the depth that they had there, both in the singles and doubles. But there was I was attending press conferences and watching matches there. I didn't see any obvious signs of discord anyway.
Yeah, and I spoke to both of them in Cancun, and I mean, obviously they weren't in form the last half of the year. They won the Australian Open last year. The summer was not great for them. I think they won one more tournament, maybe through the end of the year. I think it was in San Diego or something. And I mean, they were losing to teams that ordinarily, given their recent history, they just wouldn't lose to. And then at the WTA finals, they went 1-2, I believe, did not make the semifinals. So something just wasn't clicking for whatever reason. I thought they'd just reset, get into the offseason, figure it out, and they didn't. They decided to split. So Krejcikova is playing with Lara Siegmund, who won the WTA finals alongside Vera Zvonareva.
And won a mixed doubles United Cup alongside Sasha Zverev as well, helping Germany, win that title. So she's a huge figure in doubles tennis anyway.
Yeah, I mean, she's a fantastic doubles player. That she won the 2020 U.S. Open with Zvonareva, made the finals last year, losing to Dabrowski and Ratliff. And her and Krejcikova are going to be an awesome team. Storm Hunter obviously was world number 1 going into this tournament, decided to team up with Siniakova. And when we saw the draw come out, we saw the quarterfinal matchup and knew it was a very high likelihood that they would meet, and they did. And the match was awesome. Krejcikova and Siegmund were up a set. They had their chances in the second set, and then Storm and Katarina, came back, and I think Krejcikova and Siegmund were up 4-1 in the third, I believe, and then lose 5 straight games to drop the match. So I don't think it'll be the last time they play each other this year, assuming the partnerships work out and stick together, which they've both said that they plan to play the full season. So it'll be a fun rivalry to watch throughout the rest of the year.
I mean, Siegmund's pretty handy on the clay. Krejcikova, of course, French Open singles champion. Siniakova can handle herself too. So, maybe keep an eye out for a potential French Open doubles final. I think that would be very interesting. I'm sharing the handshake right now, which was, let's call it, I was going to say frosty, but maybe that's an exaggeration. It was just kind of normal. There was certainly no hugs anyway at the net. So, I mean, for me, though, there has to be something. There has to be something, because otherwise, why would you break up this partnership? I mean, I get it for like I said, for Olympic year, and you want to team up with someone of your own nationality and get, but they are the same nationality, so
I think I read that they probably will still team up for the Olympics, but who knows? I mean, the Czechs have so many players, like they don't have to. Like, it's not like they're the only 2 options,
Will, are there any famous fallout in doubles tennis?
Oh, that's a question for Hanlon. He's the history buff.
We'll get Hanlon on, and next time we speak to him, I'll ask him then. Because in soccer, which is an 11 on the field sport against 11, and of course within the squad you'll have 20, 30 regular players if you like playing at some point or another. It's a problem when 2 people don't get on, but actually maybe a little bit more manageable, particularly if they're playing in very different parts of the pitch. But we've had players at Manchester United had 2 strikers, so they're playing alongside each other. They just didn't talk. Didn't talk because they didn't get along. I think they finally buried the hatchet a few years after they retired, but they still kind of were effective. I would say that they sometimes were better with other partners, but I don't know if it had anything to do with their on the pitch relationship. I do think, though, that basically it certainly can't do any harm, and it can also do a lot of good. I think with Kokkinakis and Kyrgios, who we touched on earlier, perhaps their friendship off the court and the yin and the yang may well have helped inspire them to that winning title in 2022. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think it's all with doubles. Obviously, it's only 2 players on the court rather than 11 on a team. Right. So it's those 2 have to get along. Otherwise, it's really not going to work out. And I mean, I know I can't, no partnerships that have like lasted come to mind for me. There's definitely matches and players I've talked to over the last couple of years that'll like play a one-off tournament with a particular person, and they'll tell me like, they like were not a great doubles partner because they, I would double fault and they would like roll their eyes at me or something. And this is like at the pro level, and and you see it sometimes. Like, I'm not going to name names, but sometimes like there's definitely some players on tour who play with multiple partners, and you can tell just by their body language with their partner and stuff that they're like, they lose a point and they're blaming their partner rather than trying to lift them up. So it's it happens at every level. So
I think personally, the only thing that's ever frustrated me, and I've probably aired it, is with somebody I know. as in somebody I go for drinks with and get on well with away from the court. So I feel comfortable telling him, what are you doing with this shot selection?
Yeah.
The shot selection, because actually double faults, I would never, that's the absolute, for me, it's the thing I would never do is like roll my eyes or get frustrated, because nobody is intentionally double faulting. It's more often than not because of some kind of anxiety or just a human error. It's not like you're being careless. There could be something going on, that maybe you're being too aggressive on the second serve. Mostly with club players, it's not. So my only issue is things that you can control, no matter your level of anxiety. And so I'm like, what are you doing going cross court with this thing just constantly? Because whoever they're playing like alongside me, but on the opposite, they love this cross court exchange, and they could just do this all day. My particular partner can't, and at some point they're going to err. So I'm saying, get out of this pattern. Get it. The moon ball cross court as well. Sometimes break the pattern. He's like, yeah, but what about hitting the net? Don't care, because you're losing 9 points out of 10 with this cross court exchange. Okay, you change that up, and we lose the point. It's exactly the same. But I tell you what, we change it up, and we've probably got a 50-50 chance to win the point, which I like a lot more than 10%.
Yeah, you got to find some other way to get out of that. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
But that's also a conversation I know I can have with him.
Yeah, and I don't know. I can't really speak to the Czechs and why they split. I know there's a few. I think there was one report that said Siniakova mentioned she felt like the other teams knew their game plan now, but to me that's kind of a weird answer, because it's like, okay, change the game plan. Like, you don't have to stick with the same game plan. Like, once people figure out your game plan, you make adjustments. So I don't know. But we'll see if they team back up for the Olympics. But as far as the women's draw overall, I mean, there was more seeded pairs in the quarterfinals, as well as the semis. The semis was all 4 seeds. And then Hseih Su-wei does it again. It's unbelievable to come back from, it was like a year and a half off, and win 4 majors, including mixed in Australia, with 4 different partners in the first 12 months back. Like, at 38 years old, I cannot believe it. And if you've never watched her play, it's just required TV. Like, it's so entertaining, because she has such a different game style to everyone else you'll watch in pro tennis.
I mean, her partnership with Elise Mertens, by the way, and you can see from this embrace that's a doubles pairing that get on pretty well, at least for now. And Mertens is somebody who is pretty well established at doubles level. I remember speaking to her in Monastir ahead of the WTA finals. So actually, I attended tournaments kind of just prior to the WTA finals in Monastir, Tunisia, and then latterly in the Billie Jean King Cup. And I did ask her about playing doubles in Monastir, if that was ever a consideration, because at the same time, Paolini, who got to the final, she played doubles and singles throughout that tournament alongside Sarah Rani. I think she actually took the doubles title there and just fell short in the singles. But she said, no, I want to just focus on the singles here and, save some of my doubles energy, if you like, for Cancun. So just tell us a bit about these two as well and their run to the final and their title.
Yeah, so they're going to be teamed up throughout the year. That's at least the plan. They were a team 2 or 3 years ago, had a lot of success. This is not their first major together. They won Wimbledon, I believe 2021. Yeah, I think 2021 they won Wimbledon. And they had some tight matches, especially in the semis against Storm Hunter and Katerina Siniakova, which went to 6-3 in the third. But Hseih is just an absolute magician out there. And Mertens, like you said, is a very well-established doubles player. I mean, she has made the WTA finals, I think 5 years in a row with 5 different partners, something like that. And in her post-match press conference, somebody asked about the partnership and how they kind of got back together. And apparently Mertens had texted Hseih pretty early on last year to figure out if she had a partner this year.
Okay.
So she had like kind of, saw that Hseih was having some success winning the French Open, winning Wimbledon, and they had decided to team up relatively early in the year for this year, which I guess shouldn't be too surprising considering the success they've had in the past. But I mean, really impressive run from them. They had a fairly easy first set in the final, and then the second set they were serving for it at 5-3, so it easily could have been 1-3. But Kichenok and Ostapenko dug a game out on, I believe it was Hsei's serve, and then got it to 5-all, and then lost a couple of straight games to lose it 7-5. So.
Tell us about the Kichenok-Ostapenko pairing. Ostapenko can be quite bristly in singles. What is she like, do you think, for Kichenok to play alongside?
Difficult.
Okay.
She is, Hsei's probably one of the most entertaining players to watch in terms of game style. In terms of like between the points, Ostapenko might be the most entertaining player to watch. Some of the stuff we were just talking about, like rolling your eyes after a double fault and after your partner makes an error, Ostapenko does it. She does all of it. She'll look over to her box and kind of give this face of like no expression after Kichenok will miss. But they've been playing together for several years now and have had a lot of success. They've made the WTA finals before. And I guess it doesn't seem to bother Kichenok. That's somebody I haven't had a chance to interview or speak with. And that's definitely going to be one of the first questions I ask is how do you deal with the antics of Ostapenko on the court? But they're both, they're a great team. They're a great partnership. Ostapenko hits the ball so big. Mertens talked about in the match how she felt like they have to kind of take away that cross-court return. So they tried to run a lot of I formation against Ostapenko because she hits it so hard and so deep that if you force her down the line, she's a lot more likely to make that error and she has to take a little bit off of it. So, they're a very, very solid team who's been together a while. They've good team chemistry. They even won in Brisbane leading up to the Australian Open. So I don't think anybody was super surprised to see them in the finals.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Let's move over to the mixed doubles now, because time is running a little short, but that's okay. Obviously, there we had more success for Hseih Su-wei, this time alongside Jan Zielinski, defeating Kravchik and Skupski in the final in a third set deciding tiebreak, 11-9. So that couldn't really get much closer. Tell us about this pairing and the joy that Hseih is having in these two forms.
Yeah, so they did not drop a set until the finals, Hseih and Zielinski, which is pretty tough considering the format mixed. It's no ad, and then obviously the 10-pointer for the third. So they kind of rolled into the finals. Kravchik was going for her 5th Grand Slam in mixed, all since 2021, I believe. So she's been just really a force on the mixed doubles court, where I hope to see more mixed doubles draws at different tournaments outside of the Grand Slams, but that's another conversation. And Kravchik and Skupski were actually serving for the match. I think it was 5-3 in the second set. So they were in control of the match for most of it. And there was just a few points here and there that kind of went the other way. A couple of, I remember in the tiebreaker, like a high forehand volley error from Desiree. I think there was one double fault from Neil maybe. And that was the difference in the match. So it was a really, really fun match to watch and well-deserved from Hseih, who's just kind of taking over the doubles tour right now.
Yeah, right. Any other sort of standout moments? I mean, as you said, they didn't drop a set all the way to the final. But were there any other sort of highlights in terms of the mixed doubles tournament this year?
Yeah, it was interesting. So Desiree Kravchik's boyfriend is Andrew Harris, and he made the semifinals of the mixed doubles draw.
Okay.
And they lost to, he got a wild card, so he's an Australian player, ranked, I don't know, between 100 and 200, something like that. And he got a wild card into the men's doubles and mixed doubles, makes the semifinals, and then they lost to Hseih and Zielinski 7-6, 6-2, which was a pretty tight match as well. So there was a chance that Kravchuk was playing against her boyfriend in the finals,
Yeah,
which would have
right.
been an interesting story.
Is there a
So yeah,
reason
I think
they
that
don't play alongside each other? Is there a reason that they don't yet play alongside each other? Are they quite a new relationship?
Oh, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say it's probably because his ranking was too low. I
Okay,
think they may not be able to get into the mixed draw at these Grand Slams if she teamed up with him.
got it. Okay,
The only reason he got in was the wild card, the Aussie wild card.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that's it for mixed. I mean, the other thing to note for just doubles as a whole is Golf and Pagula withdrew. Obviously, Coco made her semifinal run, but I think
they're
this
gonna
is the first.
they're thinning it out at least their plans, right?
Yeah, I think so, which is disappointing for me, but understandable. I believe this is the first Grand Slam where they've withdrawn because of singles. Uh, and I don't know the details of it, but it was kind of disappointing for me to see, just as a doubles fan. But I do think, I talked to, they were both in Cancun, and I spoke with both of them, and they said that they are planning on playing together this year, but they might dial it back some. And this was kind of an early indication of that.
And I think they've reiterated that too. I think their plans are to play together, but yeah, it might be a case of where both really feel they have good chances to go deep in singles, which I would imagine would be for both players on hard courts in particular. But maybe Wimbledon might suit them to play doubles, particularly if their runs were sort of first week exits as could happen. I mean, certainly Coco was first round this last year, and Jessica Pegula made the quarters there in singles. But yeah, I mean, it is disappointing. But if they still do their bit, if they still play, Madrid, I think they made the finals in Madrid, if memory serves me right. And yeah, they're just a few 1000s here and there. Maybe Indian Wells. I don't know if they'll sign up for that for doubles, but that might work and that could be fun.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Yeah. So I mean, if you maybe one or two in front of sort of home crowds, in front of the Americans, whether that be US Open and Indian Wells, and then throw in a couple of European tournaments and Wimbledon, and if they still did 5 tournaments a year, that would still be fine. And yeah, that is disappointing, of course, in terms of their regularity at going deep on the tour. But yeah. Anyway, fingers crossed we still get to see some of them, some of the tournaments, and they have a lot of fun there. All right, Will, any final points to wrap up in terms of any doubles news that you think we haven't touched on?
Not really. I mean, there's a lot of new teams to keep an eye on that we haven't talked about. Obviously, we talked about Siniakova and Hunter, Krejcikova and Siegman. Kravchuk, I've heard, is going to kind of bounce around a little bit. She played with Demi Shores last year. She played with Ina Shibahara at the Australian Open. Beatriz Haddad Maya and Taylor Townsend are going to be an all-lefty duo this year. They won in Adelaide, so they're definitely a team to keep an eye on as well. And then Demi Shores is playing with Luisa Stefani, who are both fantastic net players. They're super fun to watch. So I would watch out for them as well. And then on the mid side, Marcelo Arevalo and Pavic are teaming up, who have both won Grand Slams, so they could definitely make a run at some of these Grand Slams later in the year. And then Lloyd Glasspool and Jean-Julien Roger won in Brisbane, and they're going to be a good team as well. So a lot of these new teams are going to be fun to watch as they kind of develop their chemistry throughout the rest of the year. And yeah, I'm interested to see if any more news comes out of changes to the tours, because it's going to be, it's going to be significant for doubles one way or another, I believe. So,
I mean, it is Olympic year, so if If doubles maybe is getting a bit neglected, then it'll soon hone into viewers during this period, and then, like I say, I think a revitalized Davis and Billie Jean King Cup. I at least in these environments, people are really invested in the doubles when it's your nation's interests on the line, and you are seeing players like Djokovic or Sinner play doubles, and at times looking at like a fish out of water, but very quickly going, okay, Jannik Sinner is the best player on the court here. Davis Cup finals. But yeah, I like that, and if we can get some of that vibe at some of the slams and elsewhere, that would be great. Will, listen, just a reminder, where can people find you in terms of the socials, but also your podcast and website?
Yeah, everything's on the website, thetennistribe.com. Instagram is the Tennis Tribe. We've been putting out a lot of doubles strategy content. So if you're a doubles player and want to improve your game, our strategy content has become really popular. And then Grand Slam previews, recaps that Hanlon writes are all on the website as well at thetennistribe.com. So you can find everything through there. And then I interview players and coaches and different doubles experts on the Doubles Only Tennis podcast as well. So a lot of places you can find us.
Great. Will, once again, it was great to have you on. Fingers crossed we get you and Hanlon in tandem post French Open. And I do hope that if we can get the time zone right, we might even get you two guys commentating on a match, maybe a slam final. One of the next three would be great. We might even try and work it out that, I mean, whatever time the three French Open doubles finals are, we might even be able to sort of talk to each other 2 weeks before and say, you know what, this one, it suits us fine because it's 9 o'clock in the morning where we are, or 10 o'clock in the morning. And fingers crossed we can get that. But more importantly, we'll have you on pretty much every post slam and maybe even one or two other occasions. But yeah, fingers crossed we do that. We will. It was great having you on again.
Yeah, thanks a ton. Yeah, it was fun. And I definitely want to do a match live at some point, whether it's a Grand Slam or Indian Wells. We'll see where the tour takes us.
Yeah, whatever suits. All right. Big thanks, Will. Make sure you check out Will on all the socials, or just Google the Tennis Tribe, and maybe you might need to add Will's name, but probably not. And especially if you're a doubles player, I think it could come in handy. And maybe if you don't want to fall out with your partner as well, maybe you can get Hanlon to write a piece on partners that have fallen out. I think that could be an idea at some point. But yeah, thanks for coming on, and to everybody else, you know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.